Hi, my name's Karen Quirós, and I am lucky enough to be the science resource teacher for the Chula Vista Elementary School District located at the Living Coast Discovery Center. The Living Coast is a small environmental education center located in South Bay, San Diego. I really miss having students come to visit me. However, I'm so excited to bring this experience to you today. The Living Coast has all kinds of animals like sea turtles, snakes, sharks, hawks, eagles, and more. And today's event is called Terrific Tortoises and Likable Lizards. And you are going to become an expert herpetologist with me today. A herpetologist is someone who studies reptiles and amphibians. If you were able to see our last live event, you know that we were already beginning our study of reptiles. So we're going to continue that study today. So, do you remember some of the main characteristics of reptiles we talked about last time, or know some on your own? Do you know a fun fact about tortoises, turtles, or lizards? If so, please put them into the question and answer section. I have my friends Mr. Bruder, Mrs. Hughes, and Mr. Garcia helping me out today, and they will be answering some of your questions along the way, and I get to check in for a couple of questions as well. I also have a really fun Kahoot planned for our end of our program today, so stay tuned and I will tell you how to join then. So as a herpetologist, we have three main things we're going to do today. We're going to review those main characteristics of reptiles. We're specifically going to look at some of the lizard, tortoises, and turtle reptile characteristics. And we're also going to look at some amazing adaptations that these animals have in order to live in really kind of tough conditions and to stay away from their predators. We're also going to get to compare and contrast turtles and tortoises. And I do have some scaly animal ambassador friends here to help me out. So if you were able to see some of our previous live events, you will know that we've been studying about different kinds of animals. And there are two main groups. Invertebrates, which are animals that do not have a backbone, and we were able to study squid to learn about them. And then there are vertebrates, which do have a backbone. And we were studying about birds, fish. Last time we studied about snakes, which were a type of reptile. And we're going to continue our study of reptiles with tortoises, turtles, and lizards today. You are becoming expert herpetologists. So there have been reptiles on Earth for over 315 million years ago, and there are over 10,000 different kinds. And there are four main groups. So there's turtles and tortoises, crocodiles and alligators, snakes and lizards, and tuataras. So last time we talked about reptiles, I was able to bring out my friend, Mr. Rosie, who is a rosy boa constrictor, a type of snake. So today I have a different type of reptile to help us out. And this is a bearded dragon whose name is Wirt. And Wirt is a bearded dragon. He is about 7 years old, and bearded dragons can live to be between 12 and 14 years. They're called bearded dragons because they actually, when they're scared or excited, they can open their mouth and they can kind of puff up their neck or throat. And they have these spiky kind of scales under their neck, so it kind of looks like a beard. They can also turn that beard black very quickly if they get super excited. Now, usually lizards can actually lose and regrow their tails. However, this bearded dragon can't do that because their tail is so very important to them. It's almost like another leg. So this is one type of lizard that can't lose and regrow his tail. So now that we've learned a little bit about Wirt, let's go ahead and review some main reptile characteristics. So all reptiles lay eggs, but some give live birth. Now there's actually, Wirt species can actually lay up to 30 eggs at one time. There are another type of lizards called skinks though, that do something a little bit different. It's like a combination of laying eggs and giving live birth. They're very interesting. So the babies actually grow up in eggs, but the eggs are actually inside the mother's belly. And then they are actually going to hatch right before she gives birth. So they come out alive. And this is called being ovoviviparous. Ovi means egg and vivi means live. So it's kind of like a combination of egg laying and giving live birth. Another thing that all lizards do or have is a spine or a vertebrae. And this is important to be able to help them to move around and support themselves. We can't really see Wirt's vertebrae. It's down his back like this, but lizards actually have a whole other set of vertebrae that we don't in their tail. So check this out. Here is a lizard spine and a human spine. And those vertebrae are actually those bumps you kind of feel in your neck back here, and they go all the way down your back. We both have cervical vertebrae, which are in our neck, and we have upper back vertebrae called thoracic, and we have lower vertebrae in our back that are called lumbar. Lizards just have one type, so that's called thoracolumbar. And we both actually have a sacrum, and then humans have a bone, kind of a tailbone called a coccyx. However, lizards actually have this very long tail, and they have caudal vertebrae to allow it to move around. All of these vertebrae are really important to help us move and protect ourselves. They also are going to protect something really important that travels from our brain all the way down our back, and that is our spinal cord. And that is how signals travel from our brain to all over our body and are received as well. Another thing that all reptiles do is that they have lungs in order to breathe air. And that spinal cord actually does something in order to help us be able to breathe. It protects our body protects that spinal cord as it's going from our brain all the way down our back. And that brain is actually controlling our breathing. It also controls our heartbeat. It's pretty good that we don't have to think about those things, right? We wouldn't be able to think about anything else. So all reptiles also have lungs to breathe, and you might even see Wirt's body kind of moving in and out to be able to see him kind of breathing that way. Another thing that all reptiles have are scales. So they have these hard plates all over their body to protect them from their hot, dry environments. If you feel your own skin, it's pretty soft, but then go ahead and feel your fingernail. Is it different? I think so. I think it's harder. And if you feel your fingernail, it's actually made of the same thing that scales are made of, which is keratin. And so it's similar, and it's going to be protecting them. That hard scale protects them from the sun, and it also is allowing them to hold water in their body and not lose it. Because they live in a really hot environment, they also need to be able to regulate their body temperature, but they can't do this on their own. I don't see any fur or feathers surrounding his body, and those things are able to help animals keep warm. He only has his scaly skin. He also can't sweat like we can or pant like a dog to keep cool. So in order to regulate his temperature, he has to go from a sunny spot to get warm to a shady spot to feel cold. So they actually are going to be able to go all the way into their burrows if it gets extremely hot. So all reptiles are ectothermic or cold-blooded. Thanks, Wirt. You were awesome. Thanks so much for helping us out today. I have some more scaly friends to come. Now, did you remember some of those reptile characteristics? Were there any fun facts about lizard tortoises or turtles that you mentioned? I would love to hear them. So, Mr. Bruder, would you mind sharing what our viewers have shared?
Hey, Mrs. Yeah, we have some really cool facts.
Uh-oh, it's a little hard to hear you, Mr. Bruder.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
Yeah, we have some really cool facts that they shared. Leonardo shared that he learned that they were cold-blooded.
Good. Yes, so you remember that. That's a big one. Very good.
We also had Emma share that tortoises can swim.
They can. They are not very good at it, but they can. Sometimes they're not very good. Turtles definitely can for sure.
Liv and Victor mentioned that they can, reptiles can blend into their habitats and camouflage themselves.
Ooh, that's a really important one. Very good. They have that coloring all over their bodies to help them camouflage. Absolutely.
Kyla shared that tortoises can live up to from 50 to 100 years old.
We're going to talk about that. Oh, fun fact. Absolutely.
And Savannah mentioned that there's 6,000 types of lizards.
Well done. You have been doing some research. Well done. That's a lot of lizards, huh?
Yeah, that is. And Aaron mentioned that they all have scales.
You got it. We just talked about that one, right? They feel like our fingernails, and it's really important to help them hold on to their water and also make sure that they survive in that really hot, dry environment.
Yeah, we have some great things to share, Mrs. Q, but I want to make sure that we get to see our next friend that you will be introducing to.
Sounds good. Those were amazing characteristics. I'm so impressed that you remember so many and know so many, and I love those fun facts too. So keep them coming in the chat, and we'll talk some more later. All right, so now we're going to be talking about lizards. And you're right, there's about 6,000, over 5,500 different types of lizards. And they're kind of in 5 main groups. They can be tiny, like 1 inch, like the jaguar dwarf gecko, or they can be up to 10 feet long, like a Komodo dragon. There are skinks and wall lizards is one group, geckos and legless lizards, which look like snakes, but they actually have ear holes, which is a difference. And then there's legless worm lizards, which are almost like worms because their skin is loose, kind of like a slinky. So they move like a slinky or an earthworm as it travels in the dirt. Then there's monitors and Gila monsters, which have some of the largest types of lizards. And then finally, there are iguanas, bearded dragons like Wirt, chameleons, and this amazing type of lizard called a chuckwalla. And I happen to have a chuckwalla right here. So this is Indy. Hi, Indy. And Indy is about 9 years old, and he can definitely be found, this type of lizard can be found right here in San Diego in the desert types of areas. You can notice that his coloring is kind of a blackish gray, and they can actually change their colors a little bit, not like a chameleon, but they definitely can make themselves lighter, and they'll kind of suck up their body when they're hot and be able to reflect the sun and kind of not have as much body surface area to be able to hit the sun and make them cooler. But when they're cold, they actually flatten out their body and they're able to turn a little bit darker so they absorb more heat. Indy actually has his name because he can kind of turn a darker kind of purplish, which is indigo. So he can do that sometimes as well. It depends on the season and also his temperature, and also others can do it because they live in different areas. So Indy comes from indigo, that color. So now that we've learned a little bit about Indy, let's go ahead and check out some main characteristics of reptiles. And there are so many different types of reptiles that there's a lot of diverse traits that they have. Most of them live in dry areas or on land, but there are some that can really swim quite well. Lizards live on every continent except for Antarctica. Now, Indy here is an herbivore, which means he only eats plants, especially loves fruits and vegetables. But he's kind of rare in that sense because only 3% of lizards are strict herbivores. Most are omnivores, which means that they eat plants and animals. And the animals that they eat are usually insects and other invertebrates like grasshoppers, termites, and spiders. The physical characteristics of most lizards are that they have these external ear flaps. So if I hold Indy up here, you can actually see On the side of his head, he does have kind of those little openings or these little flaps, and those are his ear holes. So he can definitely hear. Snakes definitely don't have those. They also can move their eyelids or blink, which is something snakes can't do either. There are some lizards like geckos and legless lizards that can't blink, but we're going to learn a little bit more about geckos in a moment. The last thing is that most lizards actually have 4 legs, except for the legless ones. Now, because these animals live in really hot, dry, kind of harsh environments, they have some pretty impressive adaptations, which are things that allow them to live in their environments. Now, Indy has kind of a gross one, but I think it's kind of cool too. He hardly drinks water. So chuckwallas hardly drink water, which makes sense because there's very little water in the desert. But he does get his water from the plants that he eats. And if there happens to be a rain and there's some water available, he can actually store it in his body. Now, what's kind of gross is that he sneezes a lot and snot flies out of his nose often. And this is actually a good thing for him because he's getting rid of salt in his body. The salt actually makes him want more water. So by getting rid of the salt in his body, he's able to reduce his need for water. I told you, kind of gross, but cool too, I think. Thank you, Indy. You've been able to teach us about lizards' characteristics. Bye for now. All right, so we just learned about a pretty cool adaptation about chuckwallas, but lizards have really incredible adaptations. There's so many more, such as we already mentioned, they can lose their tail and then regrow it. When the tail breaks off, the piece of the tail actually continues to move and wiggle to distract the predator so the lizard can escape and get away, which is pretty amazing. Chameleons, we've already talked about in a previous live event. You probably know that they have those super long tongues that they can shoot out of their mouth and be able to have really sticky ends to be able to catch an insect and be able to bring it back into their mouth super fast. Monitor lizards actually have a forked tongue, like we talked about last time with the snakes, and they're able to smell their food and find exactly where it is. Now, geckos have a lot of amazing adaptations. And I happen to have a video to show you about these amazing animals. Check it out.
Today on Animal Fact Files, we're talking about geckos. Believe it or not, there are a lot of geckos out there. With more than 1,000 species and more still awaiting discovery, geckos are a huge group of lizards. That being said, gecko classification is still hotly debated. For most people, this is a gecko. But technically speaking, this is also a gecko. I don't blame you if you don't believe that. Trying to talk about geckos as a whole isn't the easiest task. To make things more simple, we're going to discuss all the geckos. Except those guys. We'll save them for another episode. Geckos live in tropical, subtropical, and temperate regions of the world. They've colonized just about every terrestrial habitat from deserts to mountains, and though they don't live in any aquatic habitats, they can walk all over them. Seriously, some geckos are able to run across the surface of water at a speed of about 3 feet per second. That's just over 2 miles per hour. Wait, that makes it seem like they're slow, doesn't it? I'll put it to you this way. Geckos can run on the surface of water faster than any other animal that swims on the water's surface besides these guys. So like, faster than a duck. This ability is aided by their super special toes, which come equipped with pads that allow geckos to stick to just about any surface. They can even walk across a glass ceiling. Some geckos even have special pads on their tails, which can then act like a fifth limb in this gravity-defying act of mobility. Now, contrary to popular understanding, not all geckos have these toe pads. In much the same way, not all geckos have to lick their eyeballs. I'm assuming you knew about gecko eyeball licking, but if you didn't, now you do. Many species of geckos lick their eyeballs because they do not have closable eyelids, meaning they can't blink to clean their eyes. Some geckos have avoided this curiosity of evolution and still possess eyelids that close, however, so that just goes to show how diverse these lizards can be.
Wow, walking on ceilings and licking eyeballs, those are some seriously cool adaptations. Now, we are going to look at another type of reptile, but before we do, I have another question. Now that you know quite a bit about lizards and some of their adaptations, is there one of those adaptations that you wish you had? Or maybe there's an animal adaptation that you know about and think is super cool. I would love to hear them. It doesn't have to be from a reptile. Any adaptation that you think is cool or wish you had. So go ahead and write those in the question and answer section, and I'll check back in just a moment. I can't wait to hear your dream adaptations. So we are now going to get to learn about tortoises and turtles. And this is Mr. T. Mr. T is a desert tortoise. And desert tortoises can live up to 60 years, and he is about 40 years old. And they can live in super hot, dry places, which can get up to 140 degrees. So they have amazing adaptations that keep them cool and allow them to conserve water. He spends about 95% of his life underground in burrows when they are living in super dry conditions. Now that you've learned a little bit about Mr. T, we're going to go ahead and be talking about the common things that turtles and tortoises have. So you can see right away, Mr. T's shell is very hard, and it's made of scutes, which are these kind of plate-like structures here, kind of like scales. And both tortoises and turtles have a shell, and inside their shell, and their body, they have an inside skeleton like we do. So I happen to have a sea turtle shell here. And if you look inside, you can actually see the rib bones inside the shell. So turtles and tortoises cannot take off their shell. They are part of their body, so they both have the hard shell and an inside skeleton for protection. Also, desert tortoises, like Mr. T, are herbivores, which means they only eat plants. And I happen to have a pad of a prickly pear cactus here, which is one of his favorites. So I'm going to go ahead and offer it to him and see if he's hungry. What do you think? Would you like to take a bite? If he starts to eat, you're going to see that tortoises and turtles don't have teeth like we do. They actually have beaks like a bird, which is kind of different. They also have really tough tongues to help them to eat cactus plant, and turtles might eat jellies, which have stinging cells, so they also have very tough tongues as well. Usually when I want to eat, I also want to drink, right? But Mr. T gets most of his water from food. And so he can go up to 1 whole year without drinking water, which is another cool adaptation, I think. Now, turtles and tortoises don't hear very well. They don't have those external holes like the lizards do, and so they don't really respond to sounds. However, they do have these really hard shells to protect them, and so they don't have to rely on hearing to help them protect themselves as much as other animals have to. Turtles and tortoises both lay eggs, and their eggs are going to be a little bit different than maybe the bird eggs that you've been in contact with potentially. This is actually the shell of a sea turtle egg. And you'll notice I can kind of bend it a little bit and move it around. And that's because their shell is kind of more leathery. It's not as hard as the bird's type of shells. And so it will definitely be able to protect the babies. However, it's not quite as hard as a bird shell. And that allows them to actually bury them into sand and dirt and vegetation without them getting broken open if they bury them and then something walks over it. So they can actually lay between 15 and 100 eggs all at once. So both tortoises and turtles do lay eggs. Lastly, they both live long lives. They can live to be at least 30 years old, and some are absolutely able to live over 150 years. And now that we've looked at some of the similarities between turtles and tortoises, we're going to figure out how do you tell them apart. So we're going to use this chart, and we also are going to think about where they live, the land versus the water. And I also happen to have a preserved green sea turtle here. Now this sea turtle is real, but it's no longer alive. But we did not hurt this sea turtle. Sea turtles are protected, and it's illegal to hurt or even get close enough to these animals to touch them. However, they can be sold in other countries. So if someone is trying to bring these protected animals back into our country, the Fish and Wildlife Department takes it away. So this is why we have this sea turtle. It was taken from someone who had it illegally, and now we use it to educate people about these amazing animals. It is our hope that you become inspired to care about them and therefore do your part to help these wild turtles in the future. So let's go ahead and look at some differences here. You might notice right away that their shells are different. If you notice, we talked about how Mr. T has this hard shell, but it's kind of like a dome shape, right? Whereas the sea turtle shell is going to be more flat. And this makes sense because tortoises are going to be on land, but turtles are going to be in water or near water. So they're going to need a flat shell to be able to swim. Whereas this dome shell actually is getting bigger and bigger of a dome because their scutes don't shed. Underneath these scutes, new ones form and then they all get lifted up. Whereas turtles' shells and scutes actually will shed their outer scutes so that it can stay very streamlined for them. Another difference is their legs. So if you look at Mr. T's legs here, they're very strong, they're tough, they are covered in these hard scales, and they also have claws for digging or climbing. And that makes sense because they have this really heavy shell to carry around all the time, so they need to have very strong legs, almost like an elephant. Their feet are also really padded, and that allows them to walk on that hot desert sand. Now, turtles' feet and legs absolutely look different. So some of them have flippers, like the sea turtle, and other turtles have webbed feet, kind of like a duck. So they definitely have different types of legs because they can swim with those legs to find their food and get away from their predators. Another thing that's different is that they eat different things. Tortoises are usually herbivores. It doesn't look like he's very interested in his snack right now. But tortoises are usually herbivores and they only eat plants, which again makes sense because he's carrying around this heavy shell. They're pretty slow and having to chase after an animal would be pretty challenging. However, sea turtles and other turtles are going to be able to swim after their food, which is going to allow them to be a lot faster. So they can definitely catch some of those animals as well. They both have a long life. However, tortoises can live between 60 and 180 years, and turtles live between 30 to 65 years. So definitely both have a long life. However, they are definitely going to have tortoises are going to be much longer with their life. So thank you, Mr. T, for helping us learn about tortoises and being able to compare the turtles and tortoises. So we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to Mr. T for now. We did it. Well done. So we were able to look, as a herpetologist, we were able to see the main characteristics of reptiles and focus on lizards, tortoises, and turtles characteristics. We also looked at some of their amazing adaptations that helped them to survive, and we were able to see the difference between tortoises and turtles. So it is time for us to find out how much you have learned by being able to play this awesome Kahoot. So don't close this window, open a separate window, and you can go to kahoot.it and type in this pin. So while I'm getting us ready here, I'm going to ask Mr. Bruder if you could potentially share some of those dream adaptations that some of our viewers have.
Yes, we had all kinds of. The first one came from Jaden, wishing that he was able to run fast.
Oops. Oh, running fast. Oh man, something like a cheetah would be amazing, right? Definitely. Cool. I wish I could run faster for sure.
We also had one that Savannah mentioned about being able to run across water.
Ooh, wasn't that so cool that geckos can do that? And you probably have heard of the basilisk too that can do that as well.
We also had Leonardo, who said that he wished he could stick on walls or glass rocks. I think that was mentioned in the video as well.
It was. I wish I could walk on the ceiling.
We had Lucas and Tomas and Eden all mentioned that they would like to have the power to use camouflage.
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing to just be able to be in a room and nobody else knows you're there?
Eden also mentioned being able to fly. I know that's a popular one.
I wish, right? Oh, birds are so lucky.
We did have some questions going back to the lizards. Would it be okay to share some of those with you?
Absolutely. I'll see if I have some answers.
One of our viewers was wondering if lizards can swim.
They can swim, absolutely. Yeah, most lizards can have the ability, well, not most, but a lot of lizards definitely can have the ability to swim for sure.
Also, do lizards eat other lizards?
Ooh, that's a good question. I haven't heard of it, but you know what? When baby lizards are born, they're kind of small. So I would think maybe they primarily like insects like crickets and grasshoppers and spiders. But I'm sure some of those big monitor lizards or Gila monsters, they might be able to eat a reptile sometimes as well. But I don't know for sure. You should look that one up and tell me. Send me a message.
You know, another one that might be great to look up, Anthony was wondering how many reptiles are extinct?
Oh, that is a great question. There are definitely a lot of animals that are going extinct all the time, unfortunately, but we are trying to do our part very, very, very hard working at this, trying to make sure that everyone out there understands the amazing animals that are out there and how we can protect them. So that is one reason that I'm so excited that you are here today, because you're showing that you care about these animals and that you're going to potentially support them and protect them in the future.
While we still have some friends joining the Kahoot, can we fit in a couple bearded dragon questions as well?
Absolutely. I know they're a popular pet for sure.
Can you tell us about how old bearded dragons typically get?
So 12 years old is pretty old, but there are some that have lived up to 14 years. So our Wirt's getting up there, but he's still definitely kind of midlife right now.
And then also, what would happen if a bearded dragon was put into a cold habitat?
Oh, wow. So cold or hot, they can actually go into brumation, which is kind of like hibernation. So they'll actually go down into their burrows and almost kind of go to sleep. Everything kind of slows down, so they don't need to eat as much. They don't need to drink as much. And so they're really slowed down. And brumation is a little bit different than hibernation because they actually can wake up during it and kind of go out and maybe find something to eat in the middle of it, but then they will definitely go back to sleep kind of. And so brumation is something they do when it gets extreme temperatures.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. You know what? I think our friends are ready to get going in this Kahoot game.
All right, let's do it. Excellent. All right, my friends, here we go. Terrific tortoises and likable lizards in 3, 2, 1. First question. What covers the body of all reptiles? Red scales, blue feathers, yellow fur, or green exoskeleton. So what covers the body of all reptiles? Red triangle scales, blue diamond feathers, yellow circle fur, or green square exoskeleton. Go ahead and get those answers in. What covers the body of all reptiles? You definitely saw these all over all 3 of our animals today. Red scales, blue feathers, yellow fur, or green exoskeleton. 3, 2, 1. Get those answers in. Woohoo! Scales. Absolutely. Those tough scales to protect their body. Well done. Let's see who's in our first place. Cheerful glider, purple sloth, sturdy wolf, silver badger, and cheerful wombat. Congratulations. You were quick on that answer and got it correct. Keep it up. Here we go. Next question. Which type of lizard can't blink? Do you remember which type of lizard can't blink? Red iguana, blue gecko, yellow skink, or green chuckwalla? Which type of lizard can't move their eyelids and blink? Red triangle iguana, blue diamond gecko, yellow circle skink, green square chuckwalla. Now remember, they actually lick their eyeballs because they can't blink. So red triangle is iguana, blue diamond is gecko, yellow circle is skink, and green square is chuckwalla. About 5 more seconds, get your answers in. Which one can't blink? The gecko. Absolutely, well done. The gecko can lick their eyeballs in order to, because they can't move their eyelids. Cheerful glider still in first place. Well done. Purple sloth, cheerful wombat, speedy glider, and sturdy wolf. You are amazing. Keep it up, keep it up. And knowing Sphinx, whoa, you just jumped 33 places. Fantastic. Number 3. What do birds and tortoises have in common? Do you remember? What do birds and tortoises have in common? Triangle, red triangle shell, blue diamond beak, yellow circle feathers, or green square gills. What do birds and tortoises have in common? Red triangle shell, blue diamond beak, yellow circle feathers, or green square gills. What's the same about a tortoise and a bird? Mr. T didn't eat for us today, but he definitely has one of these. Get your answers in, only 9 seconds left. What do birds and tortoises have in common? It is a beak. Well done, friends. Good listening. I'm impressed. That was kind of a challenging one. Let's see how we did here. Purple sloth takes the lead, and cute cheetah, cheerful wombat, speedy glider, and fuzzy rabbit is now up. And purple deer, well done. You just jumped a bunch of places. Keep it up, friends. Number 4. What is the difference between a tortoise and turtle shells? What do you think? What was the difference between their shells? Red triangle tortoise shells are more flat. Blue diamond, turtle shells are more dome-shaped. Yellow circle, tortoise shells are more dome-shaped. Or green square, the shells are the same. What is the difference between a tortoise and a turtle shell? Red triangle, tortoise shells are more flat. Blue diamond, turtle shells are more dome-shaped. Yellow circle, tortoise shells are more dome-shaped. Or green square, the shells are the same. This is a challenging one. Made you guys really have to think about this one. Red triangle, tortoises are more flat. Turtles are dome-shaped is the blue diamond. Turtle shells are dome-shaped. Tortoise shells is the yellow one, and then green square is the same. And woo, we did it. Well done. That was a hard one, definitely, especially when you're trying to answer so quickly. But the tortoise shell had that dome shape. Mr. T has dome. We do. Ooh, purple sloth hung in there. Well done. Cheerful wombat, well done. Speedy glider, lucky piranha coming out of nowhere, and same with zany turtle. Love it. Excellent job. Here we go. Next question, last one. What does a herpetologist study? Red triangle birds, blue diamond invertebrates, yellow circle fish, or green square reptiles? What do you think? What does a herpetologist study? We've been a herpetologist today, so what have we been studying? Red triangle birds, blue diamond invertebrates, yellow circle fish, or green square reptiles. We have studied about all of these different animals over this year, but which ones did we study about today? Then we were a herpetologist today. So red triangle birds, blue diamond invertebrates, yellow circle fish, or green square reptiles. 5 more seconds, get those answers in. Well, herpetologists study reptiles. Well done, everyone. Oh my goodness, we did it. Let's see who's on our podium. With 3rd place is Speedy Glider. You hung in there, well done. And Cheerful Wombat, 2nd place. And 1st place, you rocked it. Lucky Piranha, well done. And then our runners up were Purple Sloth and Fuzzy Rabbit. Impressive. Give yourself a round of applause and hug that brain. You rocked it. Well done. All right, my friends. So you were able to play that awesome Kahoot. And now, if you're loving these animals, we have more animal encounters for you. I've created some pretty cool videos, and they are called Creature Close-Ups with Mrs. Q, and they can be found on our innovation channel and it's this awesome YouTube playlist. And it's so exciting. The Living Coast is open again on weekends, so you can actually bring your family and friends and be able to see these awesome live animals in person. Finally, we're open again. We're so excited. And if you missed some previous live events, please go to our Innovation YouTube channel and subscribe. You can go ahead and see all of our previous events are recorded there, as well as some other awesome resources. And those links are being put into the chat right now. And lastly, Mr. Garcia, next Friday at noon, May 14th, he will be taking you through an awesome experience called Creating a Whirligig. So definitely tune in next Friday. And thank you so much for joining me today. It has been so fun getting to become herpetologists and study about these amazing animals.